Good evening, America. Happy Friday. Welcome to the latest edition of Just the News, No Noise. I'm your host, John Sullivan. You know this, I report every day from the nation's capital. I'm flying solo tonight. My co-host, Amanda Head, is on assignment, but she'll be back in the seat on Monday. We're keeping a close eye on some breaking news in Atlanta, Georgia. There is a report of an active shooter on the Emory University campus. We are watching that closely. We have a breaking news alert up on justthenews.com. Check out justthenews.com all through the night. We'll keep you up to date. If we get some updates during the show, I'll break in with some news. All right, big day in Washington. Yeah, it might be August, but Donald Trump isn't sitting back. The Trump administration is continuing their investigations into weaponized justice, the latest one dealing with New York Attorney General Letitia James and her 2022 lawsuit against President Trump, his adult sons, and the Trump Organization. That investigation is apparently being looked at by the Justice Department, as well as the possible misuse or miscalculation of her own mortgages. We're keeping a close eye on that. Some grand jury subpoenas were apparently sent out of the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Northern District of New York. So we're seeking information about that investigation, as well as anything having to do with her own mortgage problems. We're going to be watching that all through the weekend. It could be one of many things that break into clearer view next week. And a little bit before the show today, President Trump sat down with the leaders of Armenia and Azerbaijan. Those are two countries that have been fighting each other for decades, actually, quite frankly, over a century, almost all the way back to World War I. But the president announced a historic deal between them to end that conflict and move towards a permanent peace agreement. Azerbaijan and Armenia signed an agreement that reopens transportation routes between the two countries, as well as creating a major transit corridor that is to be dubbed the Trump route for international peace and prosperity. How about that? He got his brand even in that. The route connects Azerbaijan with an enclave that was only separated by a 20-mile wide bit of Armenian territory. He also announced during the meeting that he was still set to meet President Putin on Russia very soon. There's also word that Putin could meet with Ukraine's President Zelensky, and also that Russia's agreement would be that they would like to keep the land they gained in eastern Ukraine. We'll see how that plays out over the weekend. I think we'll have some more developments. We'll be watching that closely here at justthenews.com all weekend long. All right, we're going to kick tonight's show off with a great conversation with a member of Congress who's played such an important role in oversight the last couple of years. We learned so much from his work. I sat down with Congressman Glenn Grothman just a little bit ago. Take a watch. All right, folks, joining us now from one of the great battleground states in this country. In fact, I spent 8 years of my life there, some of the best years of my life, the state of Wisconsin, Congressman Glenn Grothman. Congressman, good to have you on the show.
Glad to be on the show as always. We're kind of in the middle of our August break, but always a lot going on in Washington.
Yeah, well, there's still the fallout from all the great work that you and the committees that you're on have been doing. Oversight has been doing amazing work. Some pretty big subpoenas went out this week. It isn't very often that a former president and a former first lady are subpoenaed before a committee. I just want to get your thoughts on what we might learn when we get that extraordinary group of people before Congress.
Well, obviously, there are a lot of questions out there. Some of those questions are Epstein related. We have concerns about the degree to which government authorities, CIA, FBI were involved in trying to prevent Donald Trump from being president. It almost is like we have a shadow government going on out here that wants to pick our president rather than let people pick the president. And obviously the beneficiaries of that would be the deep state, which is personified by Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, there's no doubt. It's we know more and more every day. It gets a little bit more troubling. And perhaps the most troubling thing, and I can remember back to Watergate, the moment Republicans really turned on Nixon, was when the tape came out showing he had asked the CIA to maybe stop the FBI or thwart the FBI's ability to investigate the break-in. And that didn't even happen. CIA actually didn't carry through with it, but it resulted in an extraordinary backlash. But the Democrats don't seem to have any concern that the CIA and the FBI were utilized for a political dirty trick. How bad is the evidence that we now have about the CIA and FBI in terms of really putting their finger on the scale of American elections?
It's horrific. And if you're my age, you can't help but to compare it to Watergate. The difference is during Watergate, the entire mainstream media, all the TV, all the news magazines were pounding on Nixon, and he really had almost nobody to defend him. Some obscure periodicals, National Review, that type of thing a little bit, but he had nobody to defend him. And that's why I think they were able to force the Republicans to turn on Nixon. And And because nobody was firing back, you had the public turn on Nixon. Nixon's popularity was down to 23%. I think what we're seeing here is much worse than anything we saw in Oregon. You have the FBI and CIA brazenly taking sides in a presidential election. But I think the Democratic Party right now basically owns the mainstream media. And if they own the mainstream media, is there anything the Democrats have to worry about as far as just sticking with or defending or at least apologizing for the deep state, the CIA, the FBI?
Yeah, it is.
It's a big difference. It's a huge difference when the mainstream media will not take on malfeasance in the Democrat Party, no matter how extensive it is.
Yeah, in some cases they actually ridicule factual information. They're just trying to ridicule it so that people don't pay attention to it. It's really remarkable what I've seen, and I think you're right. That is probably the biggest difference between now and Watergate. I want to turn to another subject in the world because you have been such an extraordinary voice on this, and a lot of people don't spend time thinking about it, but the level of persecution against Christians around the world continues to be jaw-dropping and in some cases just outright sinister. In Syria and many other places, we're seeing wholesale attacks on Christians just because of what they believe and violent attacks. What do we need to do to better educate the public and to get more American support to help those Christians in dire straits right now?
Well, first of all, you're doing a good job just by bringing people's attention here. Secondly, the Christian churches have to wake up a little bit. Yeah. I mean, we worry about minorities, so-called minorities all around the world, and we're not worried enough about Christians who are minorities in many countries, many Arab countries, in countries kind of along that middle part of Africa, problems in India, problems in China, and it's not been made the priority it should have been made. And for some countries, and Christians are a minority, I think they care a great deal about what the United States thinks about them. We should not be thinking that highly about countries that discriminate against Christians. I'm talking about countries like, say, India, which is a very important country. It's kind of perceived to be the wave of the future, but Christians are not always treated that well there. And it's something that our president, doing a good job, can talk about a little bit more. And like I said, quite frankly, I think the Christian churches ought to be a little bit more concerned about this and saying, hey, we got the United States of America here. When we judge a nation, shouldn't this be part of what we look at?
Yeah, very important ethos that we need to restore to our thinking, at least in the public consciousness. I think the Trump administration's on top of it, and I know you are. I want to turn to a little bit of a twist in the Ukraine-Russia saga. It looks like Vladimir Putin has gotten the message from Donald Trump. Looks like they might meet. Maybe Zelensky will join as well. The idea that the president was willing to punish India, normally an ally, someone we're trying to get a trade deal with, just to make sure that India couldn't help Russia sell more illicit oil. It's a big sacrifice on the American side, but it's potentially a big game changer on the world side. Your thoughts on Donald Trump's ability to finally maybe get Vladimir Putin's attention?
It's a very big concern. I really can't think of anything Donald Trump is worried about. Usually the American public doesn't get that excited about a foreign country. But we do not want to have this sore festering that much longer. We have a situation in which other foreign countries, bad actors, Iran, but even more North Korea, Cuba, Venezuela are getting involved over there. We want to nip this in the bud before it gets any worse. I would hope that Russia would be getting tired of losing so many of its young people. Russia, like so many Western countries, so many European countries, has a population problem. And I would think that one of their goals was to get even more Europeans to move into Russia prior to this war breaking out. And I think if they want a great Russia in the future, they're going to need more young people. And they cannot afford, or I would hope they would be reticent or be a little bit afraid of losing another 30 or 40,000 or more troops every year in Ukraine.
Yeah, the carnage is just so extraordinary, and I think that's what drives a lot of President Trump's concerns.
It's a horrible thing, by the way. I don't think it's been publicized much as it should be. Ukraine has the second lowest birth rate in the world.
Yep.
So you're dealing with two countries two vast countries, Russia obviously a lot bigger, but a lot of open land there in which they should be looking to increase their population, not looking for new ways to decrease their population. And Vladimir Putin's got to look and say, what is Russia going to look like 20 or 30 years from now if we have that many or that smaller amount of population, that smaller amount of young people? And people are leaving Russia.
Yeah.
Again, before this took place, I was at the border, Mexican border in the San Diego sector. This was maybe just the month or week that I was there. But during that time, the country that had the second largest group of people passing the United States was Russia. So people were leaving before this. People don't talk about that. They should talk about it.
It's an existential question for Vladimir Putin if that exodus continues and they keep losing the soldiers at the rate they're doing. I want to turn to something that happened this week. I always use Wisconsin as a bellwether of the common sense middle America voter. President Trump deciding that we shouldn't count illegal aliens so that sanctuary cities and sanctuary states benefit financially and in terms of representation. Only citizens and lawful residents should be counted. How will that play in the great state of Wisconsin, where I started my journalism career?
Well, it should play, but again, it's one of those things that only your conservative media is paying attention to. But you're right. One of the reasons why we tried to sneak so many people in here, or President Biden did, I think the major thing is you just want to destabilize the United States, bring a lot of people who weren't used to our Bill of Rights and our history of less government. But another thing, no question, to look at is it will have an effect on the Electoral College. It is something Republicans should be aware of, and it is another motivating factor why Joe Biden was trying to get as many people here as possible. But I think across the board, he just wanted to change the United States.
Yeah.
And one way to change the United States is just bring another 10 million people from all around the globe every year here. And America is not going to be the same America it once was, because you have people who do not think like Americans should think. Their default is not less government.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
Look at all the places around the globe that vote for socialists. We don't want people voting for socialists in this country. We're going to lose this country.
It's amazing. Yeah, the dynamic is really stark right now. Last question before we let you go. In the summer recess, it's a great opportunity for members of Congress to measure what's really going on in their constituents' lives. You get lots of interactions. I see you on Twitter. You're all over Wisconsin, so I know you're working your constituent circuit. What is the sentiment? What's the most surprising thing as you're out and talking to Americans that has caught your attention this August?
I can't say it's surprising. I think the Americans right now are happy. Now, you got to remember, when I get out, I show up at county fairs, I show up at church festivals, I show up at all old car shows, and all those areas you have responsible people, and I think by and large, responsible people vote Republican anyway. But I can tell you, in all these areas, people are gung-ho behind President Trump because they feel we have a president. They don't agree with him all the time, but we have a president who is actively trying to do it to improve America. And that's kind of it's been a long time since we had a president who wants to make America number one.
Yeah, and he promised it, and he seems to be delivering it, and it seems to be resonating in the polls as well. Congressman, as always, it's a great honor. I still think about all the extraordinary work you did last year to bring the plight of those migrant children who had been abandoned by the U.S. government to light. Your oversight work is so important in Congress. Great to have you on, and I hope you have a great weekend.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Good to have you on. Very good. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, border encounters may be at a record lows, but that doesn't mean the Trump administration is not coming up with even more ways to protect the southern border. We're going to have the leader of the Border Patrol Border Patrol Agent Union with us next, Paul Perez, right after these messages. Hey folks, in today's world of misinformation and political spin, it's more important than ever to support organizations that put truth and values first. That's why I support and belong to AMAC, the Association of Mature American Citizens. They're the conservative alternative to AARP, and they're working to preserve faith, family, and freedom, three things that matter to all of us. AMAC members get valuable benefits, discounts on healthcare, travel, and health insurance, exclusive online resources, and a subscription to AMAC's beautiful magazine, one of the best reads out there for an informed patriot like you and I. And all of this is available for as little as $1.20 a month with a 5-year membership. That's what I have, a 5-year membership. Join me. Join the movement today. Visit amac.us/justnews and help AMAC protect America's future.